After almost 3 years, I'm free. It's time to conquer the meta.
Konami, these skulls escape. Recruit monsters of critters with attitude.
Go Metal Raiders! Go Metal Raiders! Go Metal Raiders! Super Heavy Metal Raiders!
Beware the critters. Hey everyone, I'm Jesse from Janjo. Thank you for checking out this installment of Duel Sauce, a series dedicated to sharing the expansive and bizarre history of a children's card game. Last episode I talked about the first format in Yu-Gi-Oh!, that being the 2002 Yugi Kaiba format, and the fascinating simplicity that provoked mind games that defined old school Yu-Gi-Oh! That format included the first sets in the series, but eventually another set was slated to come out, which would be Metal Raiders, released in North America in June 26, 2002, and Europe a little over a year later. The following format would be known as MRD, or Critters, for the new game-changing card Sangan, who is called Critter in Japanese. While the Legend of the Blue Eyes White Dragon started up the game and filled it with lackluster monsters, let's be honest, no one's playing Firegrass, Metal Raiders redefined the meta with cards that intensified the game using powerful defensive cards that made the playing field more like a war zone. With adding an abundance of useful resources, no longer do you only have to worry about a Wall of Illusion or Man-Eater Bug. Now, you had the Critter crew with strong, smaller disruptors, walls, and flip monsters like Magician of Faith or Witch of the Black Forest, among many more cards. Now, the power cards are still just as strong as before, like Lojin, Raigeki, and Pot of Greed, which lets you draw 2 cards from your deck. But among the Raigekis and Dark Holes, now we have new power cards in Heavy Storm, which clears all the magic and trap cards on the field. Mirror Force, which launches your opponent's attack right back at him like Kirby, and Tribute to the Doomed, which allows you to selectively destroy an enemy monster, making this an upgrade from the previously powerful Fissure. More so, since Thunder Dragon gives you free discard fodder, practically mitigating Doom's downside. And of course, with negation cards in Magic Jammer, 7 Tools of the Bandit, and Solemn Judgment, stopping your opponent became that much easier. With just this one set, the one-sided beatdown became obsolete in favor of more reactive decks with backup cards galore. So, let's dive deeper into the specifics of these new Metal Raiders. Who's that duel monster? It's Electric Lizard. As I mentioned with the Critters, removing enemy monsters became dangerous in contrast because destroying an opposing Sangan or Witch would gain the opponent a new monster. Hitting a Magician of Faith or Master of Darkness could recur a magic or trap card to be used against you. Yeah, you could potentially see Raigeki used 3 times in a duel. The mindset you may have had battling 2002 is now more dangerous and requires a new, cautious playstyle to walk around the minefield of floaters. And for back row, removal is much more abundant in relation to the new game changers, making an interesting dynamic. Do you set Mirror Force to only get Heavy Storm next turn? MRD is a wild time to have been alive, that's for sure. Despite it being much more dangerous, the ability to negate cards like Trap Hole and Pot of Greed was a much needed addition considering the old removal in Remove Trap, D-Spell, Trap Master, and Arm Ninja just weren't good enough for any major impact. You still have your beaters like Lojin and new cards like Dark Elf or 7-color Fish, but they are not as necessary for a top tier deck anymore. Beatdown decks still exist, but considering the card pool at the time, defensive play, or at least play more conservatively, took the lead following the Critter infestation. So, what are the big decks? There are actually a couple here, and similar to 2002, Most of these decks involve similar pieces. First off, we have your tempo deck, your standard critter beatdown that includes mostly smaller monsters that are backed up by Law Jin. The tempo is all about defending, pushing, and punishing with your small critters. It's a resource game that keeps your supply flowing until your opponent trips up and can't keep up. Otherwise, there's more aggressive beatdown decks with more powerful monsters and support traps. Fish, Dry Gumo, and of course Law Jin are a great blast of power that keeps the love of O2 going. And if you want the best of both worlds, check out the Balance deck that incorporates strong cards like Dark Elf and Summon Skull, with critters like White Magical Hat and Mass Sorcerer. Plus, Mass Negation is rather a decent deck, using all the back row cards at your disposal to stop your opponent dead in their tracks. These would be your big decks, but similar with O2, there's plenty of spice and fun to go around. In Metal Raiders, the cover card was B Skull Dragon, yeah, B, and as such, you can make a cool looking fusion deck. Unfortunately, this deck is very glass cannon as so many defensive cards roam around like Mirror Force, Tribute to the Doomed, and Wall of Illusion, making Black Skull hard to suggest. Muka Muka is a spicy deck that involves keeping cards in your hand to boost Muka to high attack for a simple beatdown strategy. Zombies have potential with support with Castle of Dark Illusions and Pump King to gradually get super strong zombies. Harpies enter the format thanks to Elegant Egotist, making Harpy Lady Scissors a tough cookie to combat with 1950 attack. Even Soul Control makes a comeback with the newly released Barrel Dragon to pick through your opponent's field. Or you could go off the deep end with a Skull Knight deck I whipped up because Skull Knight just looks that awesome. But again, same problem with B-Skull. So yeah, a lot of the other decks are rather dumb and gimmicky, but that just shows the fun of the older formats, where creativity was necessary for the rogue variety. Also, to throw some other spice cards out there, Cannon Soldier for burn or to trigger your own Sangan, Karibo for attack protection, Shield and Sword for strong monsters with low defense, Stimpack for attack boost, and Last Will is especially given a serious boost to its target pool. With the infestation of the Critter Crew, Metal Raiders brought a new age of gameplay for competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! The set introduced high defense cards that made the game more back and forth and expanded the mind games of what exactly was face down on the other side of the field. The minefield mentality was real and is a very scary format to transition to after the rather formulaic Yugi Kaiba format. While the new additions were much needed, one can't help but point out the limited aggro plays the critters caused was an imbalanced decision from Konami. MRD is a mixed bag to say the least. It's almost the opposite of Yugi Kaiba, but in a way that makes it too scary to jump into because even your own plays could be used against you. It wouldn't be until the following set when the game changed greatly once again with incredibly powerful spells that helped balance out the critters. A set where Masters of Magic reign supreme, the rule of the Spell Ruler.